Welcome to the Media Navigators, brought to you by the World Media Group. My name is Belinda Barker and I'm the Chief Executive. And this is our annual roundup for the year for 2023. And we're also going to be looking forward to 2024. Now, the World Media Group exists to promote the values of great, trusted journalism and our amazing brands. Today, I have three senior commercial leaders from those brands. I have Damian Douglas, who is the Managing Director for EMEA at Time Magazine. Welcome, Damian.
Thank you, Belinda. Looking forward to talking.
And Emma Winchurch-Beale, who's the VP for Growth Partnerships for The Economist. Welcome, Emma.
Thank you, Belinda. Looking forward to having a conversation today.
And last but by no means least, Samantha Adams, who's the VP for Advertising Sales for Western Europe for BBC News. Welcome, Sam.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. This year has been, every year I feel like I say this year's been an incredible year. It's been enormous. It's been so fast paced, and each subsequent year seems to be even faster, and this one is by no means an exception. I know that when we did last year's roundup, none of us talked about AI as being one of the biggest things that were going to happen in the following year, i.e. this year. So potentially, our predictions are not necessarily going to be 100% accurate for 2024. So, Emma, I'd like you to lead the conversation first about from a commercial perspective, what you felt were the biggest trends for this year.
Thank you, Belinda. Well, I would say that you've already touched on one, which is AI is the new buzzword. And I know we're going to dig deeper into that in this conversation this morning, but AI gets real in 2024 for business that are adopting it, regulators are regulating it, and techies continue to improve it. So I do think it's really started this year and we will see that continue next year. I think also the other thing that I have found is that there is longer considerations for programs. Certainly there are more key stakeholders involved in programming decision making. And so I found that the sort of sign-off process is taking much longer this year than it has previously.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's just something that we all need to get used to now, because there are many, many stakeholders involved in sign-off of programs. And I think that's just the trend that's going to continue. I don't think it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a shift in the way that sign-off for business programs is happening. I think deal sizes are getting bigger. That's probably feeding into why programs are taking longer to sign off. So I think also, kind of following through from that, there is an appetite for more meaningful projects as brands continue to want to be more authentic. They don't want to be classed as greenwashing or to be doing something that doesn't have some substance to it. So I also see that as a trend that's continuing this year. Another thing, I think there's a definite return to in-person events. I think we seem to have left COVID behind, and there is a lot more in-person meetings, a lot more event programming, a lot more appetite to attend bigger events, to network with your peers, to learn and to understand in person. I think the video conferencing fatigue has really kicked in, and there's definitely this year, more than last year, a return to in person.
But what Emma was talking about in terms of the size and the more in-depth nature of projects, is that something that you, Damian, Sam, are you experiencing that in a similar way?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think actually this year we saw a real masterclass in branded entertainment with the Barbie movie, which isn't something that we would usually talk about on a World Media Group podcast. But subsequently, we have seen a rise in the number of brands that are looking to engage in true commercial partnerships. So bringing it back to what Emma was saying about these, like the meaningful projects and the longer consideration times, there are these requests coming in for more blue sky thinking. But whilst brands are starting to think bigger, they are definitely being more cautious about where and how they spend their budgets. And this real need for a return on investment was critical this year.
Interesting. Damian?
Well, I agree with them. I think sales cycles or typical sales cycles, and I've been saying this for a few years now, have pushed out significantly, kind of 6+ months when I look across some of the sales cycles in our own organization. But that's because you don't see many advertising clients traditionally anymore. Clients are brand storytellers. They lean into us to tell their stories on our platforms, but they also have to tell the world how they are relevant today, because that landscape has changed pretty significantly over the last 3 or 4 years. And whether, that's the post-COVID landscape or whether that's the pre-Gen AI landscape, these businesses are different businesses now. And yeah, they are now having to say why they're relevant and also justify their existence from a purpose and values perspective, because we're asking those questions now. And that means there's more stakeholders, to Emma's point, like PR, comms, marketing, planning, execution. So yeah, the sales cycles are longer. The relationships tend to be more long-term though. So there's pluses here. And I think similarly, fewer partners, deeper partnerships tends to be the way we look at it. And I'm not sure if that's the same with Em and Sam. But fewer partners, deeper partnerships, longer relationships. So, working with partners that make sense for your brand values and their brand values tends to be the real trend at the moment.
Sam, if you don't mind me coming back to you, you mentioned that clients were demanding, clearer ROI on campaigns. How has that changed? How are you able to measure and deliver that?
Yeah, at the BBC, we've always provided end of campaign reports, but now we're just putting the depth of analysis in them is far greater than we've ever done before. So we lean heavily on our data team, looking at everything from scroll depths of articles to time watching videos, but really trying to give as much analytical data as possible. And this information it all goes back to Damian's point of the having longer partnerships. This information is then being fed into the beginning of the sales cycle on the next project. So we're taking learnings from previous projects and building upon them and just continually to get more out of all the assets, especially with content creation. When you put so much effort into producing a beautiful film for a client, you need it to go beyond just one thing.
If we could go back to talking, Emma briefly mentioned generative AI and how that's going to evolve during 2024. Sam, do you have any thoughts on how you think that's going to be applied differently?
Yeah, I've got so many thoughts on Gen AI. It's been one of the biggest topics of this year. I think that I haven't been to a conference that hasn't discussed it in some way. And it really is going to affect our industry. And there's no doubt that it's already beginning to change the way that we work. But I feel that there's still a long way to go on winning wider trust. But the speed of progress is frightening. Looking particularly at the ad industry, I think brands are increasingly exploring the use of AI, curation and personalization. People using it to work smarter, and it's enabling advertisers to analyze vast amounts of data to really understand consumers' behavior, more so than we could ever do before, just with the amount of information that we now have, and consumer preferences, their demographics. So it's really increasing the relevance of ads to consumer and allowing for greater personalization and targeting, be it within the programmatic space or display advertising. But also, and it's really impacting on brand safety, which isn't an issue with trusted media brands like members of the World Media Group, but definitely across the wider media landscape. They're getting much better at picking up areas of misinformation, which is particularly important in 2024, as we've got so many elections taking place around the world. So hopefully AI will have a real impact in getting those true messages across. And finally, it's going to offer so many efficiencies and cost savings. And what I really hope is that it frees up more time for even better use of human creativity, which at the end of the day is that what makes brands stand out, is that real human creativity across all their work.
Damian, you briefly put your hand up there.
Yeah, no, I agree with Sam. The two words I wrote efficiency and scale down when I was kind of researching this yesterday, because I did a discussion on this about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And efficiency across the board, right? We're going to know more about our audiences. We're going to be able to model those more efficiently. We're going to be able to look at how we optimize in absolute real time. Absolute real time, which is a real plus. All of this comes with significant risk and challenge, right? The more data we have available to us, the more responsible we have to be. And to Sam's point, from a brand safety perspective, that's where our brands win out time over time. But we got to work out how it plays with legislation. Look, GDPR and CPCA have been hugely strong deterrents, but are regional, and data isn't regional. And then we look at where the 10 largest fines for GDPR have been delivered over the last 2 to 3 years, and that's all been across Meta, Google, and Amazon platforms. So, we've got a huge opportunity, but with that, us being more responsible around how we handle consumer data and what we use it for is going to be imperative. I think that's one of the biggest trends I've seen, certainly in the last 12 to 18 months, is publishers starting to really own and generate their own in-house data platforms. And that's also kind of coinciding with that move to a cookieless future, which is kind of lingering there in the background. So, yeah, it's a huge opportunity. Efficiency is a real key word here, though, but also responsibility. Sorry, Em.
I was just going to add, really, that I think generative AI will go mainstream. And only just yesterday, 2 of our members, Politico and Business Insider, as part of Access Spring, have announced that a partnership with OpenAI. So ChatGPT is going to summarize Politico and Business Insider articles in the first of a kind deal. So I think we will see more and more work to really protect journalism and to ensure that we are partnering and being open about how ChatGPT and AI doesn't take away anything from editorial values. And I think there will be a debate that will intensify over the best regulatory approach that doesn't actually prevent us going forwards, but also there does need to be regulation around this kind of really exciting development. So.
And on that point, then, like, I've always fundamentally believed that good journalism and good journalists introduce you to subjects that you might not think you want to know about, but you should know about and do know about. And that's where generative AI still lags behind that human aspect, if you like. So, where the two things work hand in hand, I think we'll end up in a position where if you're reading AI generated content, you'll see it clearly labeled on sites. Because I think that that's the need for trust. And then I think one of the discussions we had back in June was about how certainly subscription-based sites can ring-fence content so it's not Gen AI pullable from, if that makes sense. Because otherwise that just detracts from subscription value that's being generated across the number of partners that we have within the World Media Group. So there's just a ton of stuff I think that needs figuring out. But I think the general sentiment is the world still needs quality journalism, and AI is not going to take that mantle.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm conscious of time, so I feel like we're going to have to cover the next subject quite quickly, and they're three really, really meaty subjects. So, but if you can try and be as focused as you can about kind of the three biggest advertising challenges of this year. The first one being around sustainability. Now, Damian, I know that you just came back from COP. I would be interested to know whether there were any learnings from COP that could impact advertising.
Oh, more problem. So just I'll keep this one quite short. But just taking a step back away from advertising, how is it going to affect business? A, we got fossils mentioned, which is incredible, given that the event was being held by a petro state, and it's the first time that fossils got mentioned in the absolute wrap up. So that's a big step forward. But the big takeout for me, and I'm going to quote Norbert Göransson, who's Germany's deputy special envoy, particularly around business. He said the business voice remains fragmented by different viewpoints. Speaking in unison would yield very different results. And that sums it up, right? All businesses are at different stages in their climate sustainability journey, but having a plan is massively important. But when you have significant inflationary pressures that are margin kind of growth economics, the business first and foremost is there to service its shareholders, right? So it's looking for competitive advantage. So unless you get sustainability and climate to be above that agenda, or certainly a consideration when you're looking at shareholder value, you are going to get people lagging behind unless policy comes in and says you have to. So I just think we're still not as far forward as many of the people at COP would have liked. And the one, given we're going into the Christmas period, the one question I asked our chief climate officer was, look, we're still measuring economic performance by GDPR, which is still, pushing consumerism. And actually, we need to change our consumer behaviors to consume less, fundamentally, to recycle, to look at where our products are being made from. So that would be my sense. Like, how can clients change? How can big brands change the way we consume without just keeping to push more stuff at us? I think everybody has a responsibility there. So that's my takeout.
Emma, advertising in a difficult economic climate. That's your question for 1 minute.
Well, thanks to Tom Standage and the World Ahead, I was able to get some guidance on this one. But the world economy remains fragile in 2024. And whilst most of the Western economies have fared better in 2023 than was expected, the risk on interest rates remain high. And the longer that goes on, it becomes more painful for companies and consumers, even if we avoid recession. And I think, when we look at coming on to Sam's sort of focus on the election year, that also has a big impact on economies, because in election years, it makes economies more uncertain, and that also has an impact. I think we can't avoid also, when we're looking at the economic climate, what's going on in the Middle East and the war in Ukraine is continuing, and then we have tensions between China and Taiwan, and these all make for uncertain times and impact oil prices, and all of those factors feed into the economic climate. And I think with uncertainty comes caution, and there is more pressure on accountability on marketing budgets. And I think that poor CMO now is the sort of not only answering to sort of the CEO, but also the CFO and the COO. So the CMO has even more pressure and accountability in economic uncertainty. So I think, yes, it's hopefully will continue and it won't get any worse. But I think we are looking at a continuation of uncertain economic climate in 2024, and that has huge impact on business. So
that still feels slightly more positive. Sorry, Damian.
I said Emma should host the lunch. We don't need to go now, which is 8. But I agreed entirely. Like, economic instability has been a consistent this year, and the election cycle next year kind of means a little bit more of the same, I would say, Sam.
So yeah, Sam, it was you got the subject of election year, which is obviously what we're moving into next year.
Yeah, and it's going to be a massive year of political change. We've got over 40 countries taking part in elections, and including the US, the UK, and India. So as Emma was saying, there's a lot of, uncertainty in the world at the moment. But election years are always interesting, and many brands consider going dark during this time, but there's no real need to do this. But it's really important for brands to be true to their brand identity and to have a consistent focus on their core messaging and to avoid diluting that message. But elections can offer, lots of opportunity as well, especially for timely reactive advertising. For example, a brand could double down on messaging about their commitment to a certain value, such as sustainability, which could really resonate with a politically conscious audience. And again, coming back to the World Media Group, there is often a lot of misinformation around elections. So it's really important for brands and consumers to engage with quality publishers who can offer brand safe environments and also that trusted quality journalism so that you know the truth of the messaging out there.
Thanks, Sam. Could you give me one sentence sum up of 2023? Do you have what would be your one?
I can go better than one sentence. I can go one word.
Oh, go for it.
Transitional.
Transitional. Okay. Emma, what would be yours?
Mine is a sentence. It's not one word. I'm not that concise. I would say busy, a year that's really moved forwards, and a return to the office.
Damian?
I'm going to go with one word as well, and that's unpredictable.
Interesting. Transitional, unpredictable, busy. Okay.
But overall, it's been challenging and inspiring, I think.
Yeah, I'd say the same. When you've got a geopolitical landscape that is as unstable as it is, that kind of seeps into everything that we do. But to Sam's point, from a journalistic perspective, you can be inspired by the work that our teams do. Well, we've had people on the ground in Ukraine, we've had people on the ground in the Middle East, trying to hold people to account, and then trying to champion individuals that are doing incredible things on the other side. So, that's what our brands are about.
It's a finally looking towards 2024. Actually, before I ask you the last question, I'd be interested from Emma. You right at the beginning, you were talking about bigger programs, perhaps less programs, but more intense programs for this year. Do you think that that's going to continue going forward?
Yes, absolutely. It's definitely a trend that started and is here to continue in that way. I think brands have taken quite a bit in-house themselves, and then I think now are looking to work with partners who can help facilitate that work, and certainly create new content that's not just that's actually got something meaningful behind it that they can then use to speak and lead thought leadership on. So I would say yes, it's a trend that's going to continue.
Okay. And what are you most looking forward to in 2024? Emma, do you want to kick us off?
I'm a big sporting fan, so there's a lot of good sports. So I'm looking forward to the Olympics in particular, because it's only on our doorstep in Paris. I found out the astronauts are returning to the moon. So I'm a real spacey, so I'm excited about that, because that's kind of going back to the old school, but it's new for 2024. So and then it's a leap year, so an extra day to get work done.
Okay, Emma, I'm impressed. Damian, do you want to take that one?
I am going to stay on the positive side here and say I'm really hopeful we get a new set of leadership emerging across some of the most important political landscapes in the world.
When you say new leadership, does that
yeah, no,
include
I
Trump?
do. Well, having just been in the States, there's definitely concern out there about the election cycle in the States, but I just think we've had a decade now of really poor standards through our political leadership, and it just feels that we have an opportunity in a 12-month period to right some of those challenges, and we have an opportunity now to put some leadership in place that shows proper statesmanship, that keeps politics off the front pages, and we go back to being public servants and doing what's right for people rather than what's right for individuals. And I think we've got a really important one in the UK. India is huge, given that it's likely to be the largest nation globally moving forward. And clearly we've got the US. So it's a concern, but B, I think we've got to look at it as an absolute opportunity and hope and trust that people do the things that are best for everybody rather than things that are best for just them solely.
I like that. It's really optimistic. Sam,
I'll wait for next year.
yes.
Yeah, I always love the start of a new year, both professionally and personally, because I think it's really great to have that reset, but also to take all the learnings from the previous year and build upon them. Like Emma, I'm really excited about the Olympics and Paralympics, mainly because I know we're going to see some brilliant advertising, creative. There's going to be amazing content out on the television. And also professionally, I find it really exciting to work with brands on trying to amplify their partnerships around, just not just on the physical location of the Olympics, but see what we can do beyond that and take it to new audiences. So yeah, I think it's going to be a really good year. Excited.
I'm excited now. Thank you very much for spending the time with me this morning. Really interesting insights, particularly around, I know I picked up on this various times through the bigger programs, more intense, more thoughtful on the commercial side, and also just the positivity, I think, around the change for next year. And with that, I would like to thank Emma, Damian, and Samantha for their time, and I look forward to seeing you all in the new year. Thank you very much.
Fantastic.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.